King has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew.
When workers quietly began renovations inside Prince Andrew's private quarters, no one expected their routine task to unveil a hidden secret buried behind his bedroom wall. But the moment the paneling came down, the discovery sent shockwaves through the entire royal household. Whispered phone calls, urgent meetings, and stunned silence followed as palace officials tried to understand what had been concealed for so long. So, was it a forgotten relic, a buried scandal, or something far more unsettling? Stay tuned, because this revelation left the royal family absolutely speechless. The hidden chamber in Andrew's bedroom. Winter gripped the Swiss Alps in February 2023, blanketing Verbier in its familiar hush. Snow muffled every footstep, turning the village into a frozen postcard of isolation and quiet luxury. Nestled among chalets owned by billionaires and industrial magnates, one property stood apart, not for its grandeur, but for the controversies that clung to its walls. This was the holiday villa of Prince Andrew, Duke of York. Worth an estimated £13 million, it had long served as his refuge, a place removed from the prying eyes of British tabloids and the hushed gossip of palace corridors. The villa had been empty for 18 months, a duration that struck Marie-Claire Dubois, the local property manager, as unusually long. Her task that morning seemed routine: inspect, document, report. Yet as she entered through the service entrance, her breath forming clouds in the frigid interior, a subtle unease began to take hold. The villa sprawled across 6 opulent floors, Persian rugs stretched over marble floors. Chandeliers imported from Venice hung dormant, and paintings, some carrying signatures that made Dubois instinctively reach for her phone, lined the walls in gilded frames. It was a palace of wealth, yet wealth alone rarely sparked true concern. It was a door that changed everything. Hidden at the end of a corridor she had never been asked to clean, the door was unremarkable in appearance but fitted with a lock far more sophisticated than any securing the rooms, filled with crystal and canvas. Dubois instinctively recognized the architecture of secrecy. This door did not exist in the official floor plans she had been provided, according to the blueprints submitted to local authorities. This section of the 3rd floor should not exist. Her first instinct was caution. She contacted the Duke's legal representatives in London, a Mayfair firm accustomed to handling aristocratic affairs. The response, she would later recall, felt rehearsed. Leave the door alone. Inside were said to be personal items, family heirlooms, and private correspondence. But seasoned property managers know the difference between nervousness over heirlooms and nervousness over something far more consequential. Dubois understood the frequency of fear in these walls. Within 72 hours, the situation escalated beyond her control. Swiss authorities arrived, accompanied by lawyers and a locksmith specializing in high-security mechanisms. When the lock finally surrendered, it revealed a room that had no right to exist. Approximately 20 square meters, windowless, and climate-controlled. As if preserving a museum's most delicate artifacts, it held an air of both secrecy and inevitability. The scent of leather and preserved paper drifted out, tangible proof of meticulous care. Inside lay documents, items, and traces of activity that none had expected to find behind the walls of a bedroom once considered a private retreat. The revelation sent shockwaves beyond the snow-draped Alps, reaching all the way to Buckingham Palace. Questions rose in whispers and demands for answers in urgent tones. What had been hidden? Why had it remained untouched for so long? And, most pressing of all, what would the royal family do now, knowing that a carefully concealed secret had been brought into the light, changing everything they thought they controlled? Now, could a secret, hidden for decades in Andrew's bedroom, rewrite the monarchy's story? and what shocking truths might still be waiting unseen. Stay tuned. The archive that was never meant to be seen. What waited inside that forbidden room went far beyond what anyone had imagined when the door first cracked open and the cold, preserved air drifted out. The chamber, carved secretly into the structure of Prince Andrew's bedroom, held 7 tall filing cabinets arranged with military precision. Each drawer slid open smoothly, revealing an astonishing level of organization. Decades of information, guarded so tightly that even the villa's official blueprints denied the room's existence. The documents stretched across 30 years. Some were mundane financial summaries at first glance, but deeper inspection revealed transactions routed through offshore accounts in places known worldwide for secrecy. The paper trail twisted through jurisdictions designed to confuse investigators, raising immediate questions about intention and motive. Swiss authorities, trained to read the language of hidden money, instantly recognized the weight of what they were holding. Then came the correspondence. Letters and emails printed and stored in chronological order, many involving individuals whose names repeatedly surfaced in international investigations. These were not casual acquaintances. They were businessmen tied to arms deals, figures entangled in legal controversies, and power brokers whose influence operated in the shadows. Each folder carried a date, a location, and notes in handwriting that left investigators debating whether it belonged to the Duke or a trusted assistant. But the photographs, some harmless group shots, others shockingly compromising, shifted the energy in the room. They were arranged in albums with careful labels, as if curated for a purpose more strategic than sentimental. And, among these records, the most damaging collection emerged: evidence connecting Prince Andrew to Jeffrey Epstein.
Prince Andrew and the businessman and convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. We know Prince Andrew got to know Jeffrey Epstein in 1999. We know that he saw...
At a level far deeper than acknowledged publicly. Here were flight logs that contradicted official timelines. Payment records routed through intermediaries, suggesting exchanges that could not be easily explained away. Printed messages showed a friendship built on mutually beneficial arrangements, the kind investigators described privately as uncomfortably coordinated. The Duke's long-standing defense that his connection to Epstein had been a lapse in judgment suddenly felt painfully thin against the stacked drawers of documented history. Yet the Epstein materials, explosive as they were, represented only a fraction of the hidden archive. The other cabinets revealed the Duke's parallel career. One lived away from the cameras, woven through his years as Britain's special representative for trade and investment. Dictators, oligarch, sanctioned businessmen. Their names appeared beside records of exchanged favors, deals brokered quietly, and transactions that blurred the line between diplomatic duty and personal gain. It was a world where royal privilege became a shield, allowing actions that would place an ordinary citizen under immediate arrest. Swiss authorities realized instantly that the room was not simply a storage space. It was protection, insurance compiled over decades, a vault of knowledge meant to shield its owner from threats known and unknown. Photos were taken, documents were logged. Every action was deliberate, measured, cautious. Then came the decision that changed everything. The British Embassy in Bern was notified. What followed in the next hours remains partly concealed behind diplomatic agreements and national security barriers. But one fact became undeniable. The discovery in Prince Andrew's bedroom was not merely a scandal. It was an institutional crisis, one capable of shaking the foundations of the royal family itself. What hidden truths in Prince Andrew's bedroom could unravel decades of royal secrecy? And who will survive the storm that follows? Keep watching. The palace confronts the bedroom files. News of the hidden bedroom archive traveled from Switzerland to London under strict encryption, reaching Buckingham Palace with the kind of urgency usually reserved for national threats. It was first delivered to the King's private secretary, who read the report twice before informing King Charles. Barely 6 months into his reign after Queen Elizabeth II's passing, Charles suddenly faced a crisis his mother had spent years quietly containing. Prince Andrew had always been difficult, reckless decisions, endless controversy, and officials constantly patching the damage behind the scenes. But this was far more severe. This was evidence, organized, preserved, and intentional, sealed inside his own bedroom walls. The palace meeting was held far from public corridors, in a private office shielded from tours and cameras. Present were the king, his private secretary, the master of the household, and senior legal advisors skilled in both constitutional law and crisis management. Joining via a secure video link was Sir Edward Llewellyn, the former diplomat renowned for navigating sensitive international disputes. The gravity in the room was unmistakable. Charles listened without speaking as the contents of the bedroom cabinets were detailed. Financial documents spanning decades, communications with controversial figures, records of offshore transactions, and most unsettling materials that revealed Andrew had been keeping insurance files. It was not just poor judgment, it was preparation. It implied a prince who feared abandonment and trusted no one, not even the family bound to protect the institution he represented. For Charles, the betrayal pierced deeper than any newspaper headline. The legal briefing was direct and devastating. If the documents recovered from the secret bedroom chamber were to become public, the consequences would be enormous. Criminal investigations could open across multiple countries. Andrew himself faced clear legal exposure. But beyond his personal jeopardy loomed something even more perilous. The files suggested that the royal household had tolerated behaviors and relationships that at the very least required intervention years earlier. Their failure to act would be judged harshly. Options were debated, none of them good. Diplomatic immunity was technically possible, but politically suicidal, a move that could ignite constitutional uproar. Full cooperation with investigators was ethically sound, but risked exposing decades of sensitive royal operations. Attempting to negotiate quietly would invite accusations of manipulation and secrecy. Ultimately, King Charles chose a narrow path between extremes. There would be no outright cover-up, he declared, but neither would the palace allow unnecessary exposure of information tied to national security or unrelated state matters. They would cooperate openly, formally, but without surrendering every detail stored inside Andrew's hidden room. Charles also made one irreversible decision. Andrew's public life was over for good. No rehabilitation, no staged return to duties, no future as a working royal. Whatever his intentions with those bedroom files, they had ended any chance of redemption. However, the official stance barely scratched the surface of tensions inside the family. Prince William, fiercely protective of the monarchy's future, argued for a blunt, complete release of the truth. Better one painful storm than endless suspicion. Princess Anne took an even harsher view, insisting that Andrew be stripped of all remaining privileges and left to face the consequences alone. Camilla, experienced in the brutality of public judgment, said little, understanding that survival for the monarchy required accountability, even when the cost was deeply personal. And as discussions continued, behind locked palace doors, the shadow cast by what had been uncovered in Andrew's bedroom only stretched darker. So how did the secrets hidden in Andrew's bedroom escalate into a crisis that could fracture the royal family completely? Stay glued. The Duke cornered by his own bedroom secrets. While Buckingham Palace scrambled behind closed doors, Prince Andrew remained at Royal Lodge, the sprawling 30-room residence in Windsor Great Park that he had fought fiercely to hold on to. When the revelations from Switzerland finally reached him, those closest to the Duke saw a man ricocheting between indignation and fear. One moment, he dismissed the materials found inside his secret bedroom chamber as misread or taken out of context. And the next, he lashed out in panic, insisting investigators were twisting harmless documents into something sinister. But the files were far too detailed, too carefully arranged, too deliberately preserved for anyone to believe they were innocent records. They reflected intention, years of intention. Private discussions between King Charles and Andrew during this period remained undocumented, spoken only in guarded rooms with no staff or devices nearby. But witnesses who observed the brothers afterward described an emotional rupture that seemed beyond repair. For decades, Charles had defended Andrew, often against the advice of senior courtiers who argued the Duke should have been removed from public duties long before the Epstein scandal. Now, the proof of Andrew's secret life sat exposed in a hidden room, a truth Charles had never imagined he would confront. When the palace finally issued its official statement, it was crafted with near-surgical precision. It acknowledged that materials had been discovered during a property inspection. It emphasized the Duke's cooperation. It underscored the royal family's commitment to transparency while reminding the public of ongoing legal processes. What it didn't say were the words spoken behind the scenes, the furious debates, the sleepless nights, the chilling realization that the monarchy had come dangerously close to irreversible harm. Behind the statement, the palace had launched a full-scale internal investigation. Forensic accountants were brought in to trace the financial pathways revealed by Andrew's bedroom files. Intelligence agencies quietly assessed whether any information posed national security risks. Lawyers worked around the clock, negotiating with Swiss authorities to determine what would be released publicly and what could be withheld under legal protections. Buckingham Palace was once again in crisis mode, a position that had become painfully familiar in recent years. As spring emerged in London, curated leaks and court filings began to outline what had been found inside the secret chamber. And each new detail painted a picture utterly at odds with the image Prince Andrew had cultivated most of his life. That of a sometimes awkward, sometimes boastful royal who blundered more than he schemed. The files suggested something entirely different. The financial records were among the most alarming. They revealed a network of offshore accounts and trusts stretching from the British Virgin Islands to Panama, used consistently between 1995 and 2018. Roughly £12 million had flowed through these channels, money whose origins remained opaque despite intense forensic examination. Some funds appeared connected to Andrew's decade as Britain's special representative for trade and investment, years in which he traveled widely, meeting officials, negotiating access, and courting powerful figures. Critics had long questioned whether a royal should be involved in commercial diplomacy. The bedroom documents added troubling weight to those doubts. One file focused on Andrew's dealings with Timur Kulibayev, the Kazakh oligarch and son-in-law of Kazakhstan's former ruler. The documents revealed that Andrew had facilitated business interests linked to Kulibayev, including the sale of Andrew's former marital home for £3 million above its asking price. The correspondence made clear this was no ordinary real estate transaction, but part of a mutually beneficial arrangement. Access and influence exchanged for money, hidden through deliberately complex channels. Another section detailed Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, though Andrew had insisted their friendship was casual and that he had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes. The bedroom files told a far more troubling story: undisclosed flights, visits to multiple properties tied to Epstein's abuse, communications that showed familiarity, not distance, and the photographs, dozens of them, captured Andrew relaxed and fully integrated into Epstein's world, far beyond anything he had admitted publicly. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery was not the transactions, the travels, or the images. It was the mindset revealed by the way Andrew had stored everything. Meticulously, secretly, and inside the bedroom only he could access. And what did Andrew hope to achieve by turning his bedroom into a vault of secrets? Protection, power, or something far more dangerous? Stay with us. Secrets that turned a bedroom into a weapon. What startled investigators most as they dug deeper into the drawers and folders spread across Prince Andrew's bedroom was that the financial records and compromising photographs were only the surface, tucked between files, wedged behind binders, and slipped into leather-bound notebooks were dozens of personal notes. Some typed with military precision, others scrawled in hurried handwriting. Together, they formed something far more unsettling than a diary. They were a private record of a man who felt wronged, misunderstood, and increasingly angry at the world around him. The tone of these notes shifted over the years. Early entries brimmed with frustration, but still carried the voice of someone hoping for recognition. By mid-2010, however, the words had sharpened into something colder, heavier. Page after page echoed the same themes: resentment toward the public, irritation with advisors, and a deep conviction that he had been underappreciated. The bitterness extended to his own family. In several passages, he accused senior royals of failing to defend him, of stepping back when he needed their support most. There were suggestions, written plainly without hesitation, that some envied his global connections and influence. What unsettled the team even more was the Duke's awareness of the very moment he now seemed trapped within. He knew scrutiny would come. He expected it, and so he collected, he organized, he prepared. These files, they realized, were not mementos. They were a shield. One handwritten entry dated 2019, just months after the Epstein scandal erupted, chilled the room. In that passage, Andrew wrote plainly that he had taken steps to guarantee his own protection. A warning followed: if the palace attempted to cast him aside, they would discover that he was not without defenses. The meaning was unmistakable. These archives, stored within the quiet of his bedroom, were not simply evidence. They were leverage, insurance, a subtle form of blackmail aimed inward at his own blood. As intelligence services reviewed the materials at the palace's request, their concerns widened. Buried among the contacts, correspondence, and meeting notes were names already known to counterintelligence units, individuals with ties to foreign security agencies, people who had over the years cultivated friendships, favors, and access. There was nothing in the files to suggest the Duke had knowingly leaked state secrets, but the vulnerabilities were obvious. His behavior had created openings others could exploit, and the pattern of recklessness stretched far beyond his personal scandals. When these findings began circulating among those briefed, any remaining public sympathy evaporated. The settlement with Virginia Giuffre had bruised his reputation. These documents crushed what lingered. What emerged from his bedroom was not the portrait of a man who had simply made poor choices. It was the outline of a decades-long life lived in the gray zones of power, privilege, and personal grievance. And now, with every page spread across the bed where they were found, the difference between Prince Andrew's public image and his private reality had grown too vast, too stark, too dangerous to ignore. And now, what secrets hidden behind Prince Andrew's bedroom walls could redefine his legacy and shake the monarchy? The collapse of the silent walls. What unfolded next, inside the tight, suffocating space of Prince Andrew's bedroom, spread far beyond those four walls. Every new document pulled from a drawer, every note recovered from beneath a stack of confidential files, sent fresh shockwaves through the country. The revelations hidden here did not stay confined to a bedroom. They exploded outward, igniting a public storm unlike anything the monarchy had faced in generations. The moment investigators confirmed the depth of the Duke's offshore accounts and the long trail of unmonitored transactions quietly stored in folders beside his bed, the reaction was immediate. Parliamentary committees called emergency sessions, demanding full inquiries into royal finances. Questions that had been avoided for decades were suddenly impossible to escape. Outside palace gates, protesters gathered with signs that read, "Accountability for all." Their voices echoed across London. How had these activities gone unnoticed? Who had approved such dealings? And more dangerously, how many others enjoyed the same shadows? This was no longer just about Prince Andrew. The files discovered in his bedroom, those meticulous records, those pointed letters, those damning correspondences, did something far more destabilizing. They peeled back the curtain on a system, an ecosystem of privilege where oversight appeared optional and consequences negotiable. It was a threat not just to a prince, but to the institution that had quietly enabled him. Previous royal crises had revolved around individuals, abdications, divorces, personal tragedies. But this felt different. The Epstein scandal had raised questions about judgment. The Giuffre settlement had raised questions about morality. But the materials uncovered here in Andrew's private space illuminated something far broader: a structural failure, a long-standing belief that silence was equivalent to protection, and tradition a substitute for accountability. Public patience thinned by the day. Commentators who once defended the monarchy now questioned its relevance. Polls reflected a generational divide. Support among younger Britons dropped sharply. Newspapers traditionally loyal to the crown began calling for reform, arguing that the monarchy could no longer survive on mystique alone. Inside the palace, tension thickened. Senior courtiers whispered about transparency audits, reduced expenses, and permanently shrinking the number of working royals. It became clear that the old strategy, contain, conceal, move on, was no longer an option. Charles felt the shift most heavily. He knew the decades-old rulebook was now outdated. The quiet dignity and distance the monarchy once relied upon had become liabilities. William, sharper in instinct and clearer in tone, stepped forward as the voice of reform. He argued that the future of the crown depended not on perfection, but on authenticity, and sided with him. Even Camilla, often cautious in moments of upheaval, admitted privately that William was right. Slowly, Charles accepted the truth he feared. Continuing to shield Andrew meant risking everything else. Public statements soon followed, delicately phrased acknowledgments of wrongdoing. But beneath their polished surface, the message cut sharply. The age of automatic forgiveness was over. Andrew would live quietly, indefinitely, stripped of public duties and title. Within those ancient walls, something irreversible shifted. The files discovered in that bedroom had not just exposed a prince. They had exposed a truth long whispered but rarely spoken aloud. The gravest danger to the crown had never come from outside, but from the failings hidden within it. But what if the secrets hidden in that bedroom reveal a danger so deep it threatens the very foundations of the crown? The room that unmade a prince. By summer, the chaos that had erupted from Prince Andrew's bedroom had settled into a relentless, grinding unraveling. What began as a shocking discovery behind a hidden wall had become an international reckoning. The boxes of documents, financial records, correspondence, and concealed files recovered from the room were no longer mere scandal. They were evidence. Within weeks, Andrew's public life was stripped away with finality. The process, initiated after the Giuffre settlement, now carried the weight of closure. All military appointments and patronages were removed. His Buckingham Palace office was shuttered. Longtime staff were dismissed. Even his official stationery, once embossed with the authority of His Royal Highness, was destroyed. Though technically still the Duke of York, the title was hollow, symbolic only. The bedroom files triggered a transnational legal storm. Swiss authorities, coordinating with British financial investigators, examined thousands of documents that traced a labyrinth of offshore accounts, shell companies, discrete intermediaries, and frozen holdings. Lawyers spoke cautiously about complex structures, but the implication was clear. A long-standing network designed to obscure accountability was being exposed. For the royal family, the revelation upended decades of protected equilibrium. Silence and discretion could no longer shield misjudgments. In his first major address to Parliament, King Charles called for renewal through transparency, a pointed reference to his brother's concealed activities. His reforms, independent audits, strict controls on external business dealings, and clearer separations between personal wealth and public duty became essential for the monarchy's survival. Public scrutiny intensified. Parliamentary committees demanded full accounting of Crown estate spending and the sovereign grant. Newspapers published exposés, while television panels debated the monarchy's relevance. The scandal, born in one bedroom, sparked a national conversation about accountability and privilege. Meanwhile, Andrew's world contracted. Royal Lodge, the home he had fought to retain, became a gilded exile. He ventured out rarely for solitary rides in Windsor Great Park or brief church visits, each outing risking ridicule. Invitations ceased. Phones stayed silent. Even inside the palace, his name was whispered cautiously. His daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, remained loyal but wary. Visits were polite but weighed with exhaustion and caution. Their careers and public roles depended on distance from their father's disgrace. Each resurfacing of his name threatened to undo progress they had fought to achieve. Love endured, but it was strained by disappointment and fear. Legal scrutiny moved slowly but inexorably. Prosecutors in the UK, Switzerland, and the United States examined whether the files supported criminal charges. Andrew's legal team could not deny the pattern of entitlement, influence trading, and compromising associations revealed within the bedroom. International repercussions followed. Republican movements in Australia, Canada, and the Caribbean cited the scandal as evidence for constitutional change. Former foreign officials questioned whether his trade envoy work had blurred the line between public duty and personal gain. In the United States, the FBI reopened parts of the Epstein investigation, requesting access to previously undisclosed correspondence, visits, and flights documented in the bedroom files. The British government negotiated delicate agreements, balancing cooperation with the protection of national security. As months stretched into a year, public outrage gave way to quiet acceptance. Andrew's reputation was irreparably damaged. Commentators described him as a ghost of privilege wandering through the ruins he created. The monarchy endured, but its image was fractured. Courtiers whispered of lessons learned, but feared what other secrets might lie hidden. King Charles reflected privately on the scandal's cost. He had long known his brother's flaws: vanity, impulsiveness, poor judgment, but the bedroom's revelations exposed the cost of familial protection. The files revealed not just Andrew's misconduct, but the monarchy's collective blindness. Silence and inaction had enabled it. Endurance now demanded transformation. The mystique of previous generations had evaporated. Public trust would need to be rebuilt slowly and deliberately. The bedroom in Windsor, once a private royal space, had become a symbol far larger than the man who slept there. Its hidden compartments, secret files, and unearthed evidence carried a warning that reverberated across Britain. No title, however ancient, can shield its bearer from the truth forever. So what do you think lies behind the secrets Andrew tried to hide in his bedroom? Pure scandal, carefully preserved leverage, or something even darker? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.